ngulumiza mange Uganda anti yensibuko y'obulamu bwange Katonda yatuwa obutonde natuwa eddembe ebyobugagga bw'ensi byonna natugonomolako ebibira nyanja byonna natuwa embeera y'obudde ngitweyagaza enkuba etonnya omusana ne gwaka ebika by'emmere Uganda eyina ntoko matooke n'obulo lumonde tubisimba buli ggwanga lyeyisa nabwali.
Dear listeners, welcome to today's radio program. On today's radio program, we are going to look on ways on how to increase harvests through good soil fertility management. Good soil fertility management ensures that the soil can actually provide the nutrients in sufficient amounts at all times during the growth of the plants. Soil fertility in many parts of Africa, however, is declining. Africa's consumption of fertilizers is the lowest in the world, and organic matter that could, to some extent, replace fertility is often burnt, and the soil is left bare to the degrading effects of the sun and the wind. How can farmers increase their harvests when their soils are poor? Farmers should know that at each harvest the soil is depleted of nutrients. If you grow many food crops in the same garden and do not put any nutrients back into the soil, all the nutrients will progressively be taken out of the soil by the crops. It is therefore important that after harvesting a crop, the leaves, the dead top parts, grasses, and weeds are left on the soil. These all contain some nutrients. They should be buried in order to enhance soil fertility. Farmers are encouraged, therefore, to make use of organic matter either from the field or from the home compound or from their animals' dung. Organic matter can improve the soil, and its water holding capacity is multiplied many times. Burning trees, shrubs, or crop residue makes the soil poor because the plant foods are left loose in the soil and are easily washed away by rain before a crop can use them. In this radio program, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to point out some of the steps that farmers can follow to manage the soil well so that it always contains a supply of nutrients for their crops. These guidelines will ensure that farmers realize increased harvests on their farms. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the guidelines. Number 1, rotating crops regularly. 2, mulching. Number 3, irrigating. Number 4, draining excess water. And lastly, number 5, applying fertilizers. Let me repeat them again. Number 1, rotating crops regularly. Number 2 was mulching. Number 3 was irrigating. Number 4, draining excess water. And lastly, number 5, applying fertilizers. Now we're going to look at each of these in small details. Rotating crops regularly. Just as human beings eat more of different kinds of foods than others, likewise plants always take out of the soil more of some nutrients than others. So if you grow the same crop in the same soil every year, the crop will use up most of certain kinds of nutrients in that soil. For example, maize crops take a lot of potassium from the soil, and sugarcane takes a lot of nitrogen from the soil. It is important that farmers do not grow the same crop on the same land every year. Instead, they should try to grow different crops in that soil each year. For example, if you grow cassava in the garden for 1 year, you may grow beans or some other crops the next year so as to keep the soil fertile. The best kind of rotation is when a legume crop is grown after 3 years. Legumes are plants such as beans and peas, which have small lumps called nodules on their roots. These plants can add nitrogen to the soil. They make the soil richer. Therefore, rotating crops regularly will help farmers improve the fertility of their soils, leading to increased harvests. Our second point was mulching. A mulch can be any light, loose material that is laid over the soil around the plant. Mulching will improve soil structure and texture. Farmers can mulch by placing a layer of dead leaves or grasses on top of the soil around the growing plant. Mulching protects the topsoil, where most of the nutrients are found, from being blown away by the wind. There are two reasons for mulching on the soil. One is that when the dead leaves and stalks of the mulch get wet from the rain, they become soft and begin to break down. Soon they are added to the soil as small pieces of organic matter. This organic matter is useful because it holds water and food for the plants. The mulch also stops weeds from growing with the crops and using up water and nutrients from them. Mulching will therefore contribute to increased farm harvests if applied in this way. Let's move on to our third point. It was irrigating. Farmers must do what they can to give their crops enough water. To irrigate the soil, you must find a supply of water near your fields or garden. You will have to dig a long channel in the soil to carry water to your land. This channel must not slant too much, or the water will rush too quickly along it. It is good if the water flows slowly and the in the irrigational canal. This will prevent soil from being carried away and also allow the water to percolate into the soil easily. If your land is on a hillside, the channel must take water across the upper part of the land. Then you can make water flow out of this channel into many small channels that flow down the hillside and take the water to the crops. The farmer must be able to stop more water from coming into the fields or garden as soon as they realize that there is enough water in the soil for the crops. Most plants will not grow if there is too much water lying on the soil. When the water lies on the ground, it makes the soil cold and keeps air out of the soil. Plants such as coffee and cocoa need well-drained, warm soils, and all plant roots need air. So you can see how irrigating is so important to what is called. Our fourth point was draining excess water. Farmers must make sure that there is not much water in the soil. If there is too much water in your soil, you should make drains in your land. These will let the water run out of the soil. This is how to make a drain. A. First, dig a main channel down the middle of the garden so the water can run downhill to a creek. Main channels must be deep and wide and made to flow down to the lowest part of the garden to a creek, a dam, or a flowing river. B. Then, dig side channels to run into the main channel. They should not be at right angles to the main drain, but should point in a direction that flows down the main drain. If the soil is sandy, it is difficult to make channels or drains because the soil particles won't hold together and will easily be washed away by running water. Clay soil is therefore ideal for making drains. Our fifth point, ladies and gentlemen, was applying fertilizers. Farmers can also apply chemical fertilizers so as to rapidly correct nutrients deficiencies in their soils and to replenish other nutrients lost by removal of plant products or by leaching, erosion, and so on. Good response to fertilizer application can only be achieved if it is integrated with other good farming practices like the maintenance of soil organic matter and soil structure, and sufficient moisture and adequate drainage of land. In summary, therefore, guidelines which will ensure that farmers realize increased harvests on their farms include: number 1, rotating crops regularly. Number 2, mulching. 3, irrigating. 4, draining excess water. And 5, applying fertilizers. Dear listeners, we have come to the end of this radio program. Thank you very much for tuning in. This radio program was produced by the Rural Empowerment Network with financial assistance from the Technical Center for Agriculture and Rural Cooperation. Thank you very much. God bless you.